You know, when we think of deadly animals, we usually picture predators just trying to get a meal. But nature has a much darker side. We're talking about real-life murderers. Creatures that didn't just kill, they specifically targeted humans, built these legacies soaked in blood, and absolutely terrorized entire communities. So today, we're going to do a deep dive, a scientific investigation into the world's most notorious man-eaters.
436. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's not some abstract statistic. That's the number of people confirmed to have been killed by a single animal. It is the deadliest record ever documented.
And that right there, that leads us to the central question of this whole explainer. We're not just here to tell horror stories. We're trying to get to the why. What is it that pushes a predator over the edge? What turns it into a calculated hunter of us?
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at predators who might have been driven by pain. Then we're going to examine the ones created by pure circumstance. We'll even touch on a few genuinely baffling unsolved cases. And finally, we'll try to piece together the recipe for what really creates a man-eater.
So our first category, this covers animals that might have turned on us, not out of some kind of innate evil, but out of sheer total desperation, usually caused by some kind of horrible injury that just completely changed their world.
And that brings us right back to the animal responsible for that insane number we started with. In the early 1900s, this one single tigress literally brought 2 entire countries to a standstill. I mean, the scale of the terror here was just unprecedented. After this tigress killed over 200 people in Nepal, they literally called in the army. The army failed to kill her, but they did manage to push her across the border into India, and her reign of terror just picked right back up, eventually forcing the government to call in a specialist.
Yeah, this was not some shy, elusive predator hiding in the shadows. She was bold. She was brazenly walking into villages. Daily life just stopped. So when the legendary hunter Jim Corbett was finally brought in, he tracked her for days. He eventually cornered her right after she had killed a 16-year-old girl. And after a long, tense pursuit, he finally killed her. But the real discovery, the thing that changed everything, came when he examined the body.
And there it is, the key to the whole mystery. That damage to her teeth, which probably came from an old bullet wound from a hunter, would have made it excruciatingly painful, if not totally impossible, for her to hunt her natural prey, like deer or wild boar. She couldn't hold on to them. So she adapted. She turned to the only prey in the forest that was soft, slow, and couldn't really fight back. People.
Okay, now for our next case. This one's a surprisingly ferocious predator from India. But here's the twist. This animal wasn't hunting for food. It was attacking with pure, unadulterated rage.
You see, this case shows us a completely different motive. This wasn't about hunger. The bear would charge people, rip their faces and scalps off, and then just disappear. It left behind these horribly maimed, traumatized survivors, but it never, ever ate its victims.
I mean, you gotta ask yourself, what on earth would make a sloth bear, an animal that mostly eats insects, so incredibly violent? Well, the hunter who was called in, Kenneth Anderson, he didn't think this was just some random rogue animal. He believed this bear had been made into a monster, probably by human hands.
And the evidence really points in one direction. This was a predator born from pain. Its rage seems to have been a direct consequence of human actions, maybe an injury from a poacher's bullet or just the incredible stress of losing its home. It was lashing out at the source of its misery.
All right, so let's move on because this is where it gets even more interesting. Not all man-eaters are created from injury. Some are just created by circumstance, when a perfect, terrible opportunity just falls into their lap.
For 8 long years, a single leopard held a whole pilgrimage route in northern India hostage. And this wasn't just some wild animal running around. No, this thing was intelligent. It was an elusive killer that learned how to break into houses, how to crash through roofs, and it dragged 125 people from their own beds.
So when Jim Corbett, the same hunter who stopped the Champawat tigress, finally killed this leopard, he expected to find another injury, right? But nothing. It was a large, perfectly healthy male. No disease, no broken teeth. The key to its behavior wasn't in its body. It was in recent history. A human pandemic had taught this leopard that people were an easy meal, and when that source ran out, it simply started hunting for a fresh supply.
Now let's talk about a case that involves not one but 2 killers working together. Back in 1898,
a pair of male lions brought the construction of the Kenya-Uganda Railway to a grinding halt. They were dragging workers from their tents night after night after night.
It really seems like a combination of factors created these monsters. A disease had wiped out all their normal food. They might have learned to scavenge human remains left behind by the slave trade, and to top it all off, at least one of them probably had a painful tooth infection. It was a perfect storm of natural disaster and human activity that turned a simple construction site into a hunting ground.
Okay, let's shift gears and look at two cases where the reign of terror is completely documented, we know it happened, but the true identity of the culprit or its motive is still a mystery to this day.
Meet Gustave. This is not just any Nile crocodile. This guy is a living legend in Burundi. He's believed to be over 20 feet long, maybe 2,000 pounds. He is a true monster. He's got at least 3 bullet scars on his body. He's escaped these incredibly elaborate traps, and like the quote says, he often seems to kill just for the sake of killing. He could be gone now, but a lot of locals are terrified that he's still out there.
And hey, if you think these stories only happen in faraway jungles, think again. Let's talk about an event that brought this kind of terror right to America's doorstep. Over just 12 days in the summer of 1916, a series of shark attacks left 4 people dead, sparked a nationwide panic. And yeah, it was the inspiration for the movie Jaws.
This case is still one of the great debates in shark science. See, a great white was caught, human remains were found inside, and the public basically declared the mystery solved. But here's the problem. 2 of the attacks happened in a freshwater creek, an environment a great white just can't handle. A bull shark, on the other hand, they thrive there. So was it one rogue shark or maybe 2 different killers? We honestly may never know for sure.
So, after going through all these chilling cases from all over the world, what have we actually learned? What's the common thread that connects a tiger in India, a pair of lions in Kenya, and a shark off the coast of New Jersey?
Well, the clearest takeaway seems to be that these animals are not born evil. They're almost always driven to hunt humans by a combination of things, many of which we directly cause: a bad injury, starvation, opportunities that pop up because of our own tragedies, and of course, us pushing further and further into their homes. And all of this, it leaves us with one final, kind of haunting question. When we tell these stories about these monstrous animals, maybe we should look a little closer. Are we really seeing a monster born from nature's cruelty, or are we just looking at the reflection of a monster that we, humanity, helped to create?